As the long, bright Mediterranean day began to soften, a gentle shift would settle over the ancient Greek world. The intense heat, which often characterized their afternoons, would gradually release its hold. The fiery ball of the sun, having traversed the clear azure sky, would begin its slow descent towards the western horizon, painting the clouds in hues of amber, rose, and the softest violet. Imagine the light stretching long and golden across the landscapes, over the olive groves with their silvery leaves, rustling in the light breeze, across the vineyards heavy with grapes, and over the rocky hills dotted with fragrant wild herbs. As the long, bright Mediterranean day began to soften, a gentle shift would settle over the ancient Greek world. The intense heat, which often characterized their afternoons, would gradually release its hold. The fiery ball of the sun, having traversed the clear azure sky, would begin its slow descent towards the western horizon, painting the clouds in hues of amber, rose, and the softest violet. Imagine the light stretching long and golden across the landscapes, over the olive groves with their silvery leaves, rustling in the light breeze, across the vineyards heavy with grapes, and over the rocky hills dotted with fragrant wild herbs. In the bustling cities, like Athens or Corinth, the sounds of the marketplace would begin to subside. The lively bartering and chatter would slowly fade as merchants packed their wares and prepared to close their stalls. The air, once filled with the calls of vendors and the footsteps of citizens, would gradually become quieter, punctuated by the occasional laughter of children still, playing in the dwindling light or the rhythmic sound of someone sweeping their doorstep. Within the homes, families would gather as the evening approached. These homes, often built around a central courtyard open to the sky, would become havens of quiet activity. Imagine the gentle sounds of preparation for the evening meal, the clinking of earthenware vessels, the soft thud of olives being crushed, the murmur of conversation between family members. The air might carry the faint, enticing aroma of simple, wholesome food cooking over a hearth or a small portable grill. As darkness deepened, the importance of firelight would become more pronounced. Clay lamps, filled with olive oil and fitted with simple wicks, would be lit, casting flickering, dancing shadows on the walls. These lamps, though humble, would create a warm and intimate atmosphere within the home, their soft glow illuminating faces and hands engaged in quiet evening tasks. You might imagine the gentle crackle of the flame and the subtle scent of burning oil, mingling with the other homely aromas. For many, the evening would be a time for simple pleasures and quiet companionship. Families might sit together, sharing stories of the day's events, or listening to a grandparent recount tales of myths and legends, stories of powerful gods and goddesses, of brave heroes and their epic journeys. These oral traditions were a vital part of their culture, passed down through generations in the soft glow of lamplight. Imagine the hushed tones and the rapt attention of the listeners, their imaginations painting vivid pictures in the darkness. Music also played a significant role in the evenings. The gentle strumming of a lyre or the soft melodies of a flute might drift through the air, providing a soothing backdrop to the end of the day. Music was often intertwined with poetry and storytelling, creating a harmonious and relaxing atmosphere. Perhaps someone would sing a traditional folk song or recite verses from a beloved epic. In the realm of intellectual pursuits, the evening could also offer a time for quieter reflection. Philosophers and scholars might gather in private homes or smaller, less formal settings to continue their discussions and debates, often illuminated by the steady glow of lamps. Imagine the low murmur of thoughtful voices, the exchange of ideas, and the quest for knowledge unfolding in the stillness of the night. These were not the grand pronouncements of the daytime agra, but more intimate conversations amongst those who sought deeper understanding. For those who lived in the countryside, the evenings would be closely tied to the rhythms of nature. As darkness enveloped the land, the sounds of the nocturnal world would emerge, the chirping of crickets, the hooting of owls, perhaps the distant baying of a shepherd's dog, the vast expanse of the night sky, unpolluted by artificial light, would have been a breathtaking sight, filled with countless stars twinkling like diamonds on black velvet. It's easy to imagine people stepping outside their homes to gaze at this celestial tapestry, perhaps contemplating the myths and stories associated with the constellations, the tales of gods and heroes said to be written in the stars themselves. The moon, when visible, would cast a soft, silvery glow over the landscape, transforming familiar shapes into ethereal forms. As the night deepened, a sense of quietude would settle over the ancient Greek world. The sounds of life would gradually diminish, replaced by the gentle hush of darkness. People would prepare for sleep, perhaps lying on simple mats or beds, covered with blankets. The air would cool, carrying the faint sense of the surrounding vegetation. For those who lived near the sea, the gentle rhythm of the waves lapping against the shore would provide a constant, soothing soundtrack to the night. Imagine the ebb and flow, a timeless lullaby that has whispered across coastlines for millennia, carrying with it a sense of peace and tranquility. And so, as the stars wheeled silently overhead, the ancient Greeks would drift into the realm of sleep, their minds perhaps filled with the day's events, the stories they had heard, or the hopes for the dawn. It was a time for rest, for rejuvenation, a peaceful pause before the sun would once again rise over their vibrant world. Allow yourself to follow their example, dear listener. Let the gentle images and soft sounds of this ancient evening wash over you. Feel your eyelids growing heavy, your breath becoming slow and deep. There is nothing more to do now than to rest. Allow the tranquility of the past to guide you into the peaceful embrace of sleep. Sweet dreams. As we continue our gentle journey through an ancient Greek evening, let's imagine ourselves moving beyond the walls of homes and the quiet lanes of towns. Let's consider the experiences of those whose lives unfolded closer to the edges of the settled world, or those whose evenings held particular customs and traditions. For shepherds tending their flocks in the hills, the evening marked a transition from the active work of the day to the quiet vigilance of the night. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they would guide their sheep to sheltered areas, perhaps within simple stone enclosures built for protection against wild animals. The sounds of bleating would gradually subside, replaced by the crackling of a small fire lit for warmth and companionship. Under the vast, star-studded sky, the shepherd might have felt a profound connection to the natural world, his thoughts perhaps drifting with the smoke of his fire into the stillness of the night. Along the coastlines, the lives of fishermen were deeply intertwined with the rhythms of the sea. For some, the evening might bring the return of boats laden with the day's catch. Lanterns would bob gently on the water as they approached the shore, and the sounds of men calling out to one another, the creaking of oars, and the splashing of water would fill the air. The work might continue into the night as the catch was sorted and prepared for market. For other seafarers, the evening might mean preparing their vessels for an overnight journey or finding a safe harbour to anchor in. The harbour at night would have had its own unique atmosphere, the gentle rocking of ships, the creak of rigging, and the distant calls of watchmen ensuring the safety of the fleet. Sailors might gather on deck, sharing a simple meal under the moonlight and telling tales of their voyages across the wine-dark sea. Within the sanctuaries and temples dedicated to the gods and goddesses, the evenings would also hold a special significance. While grand public ceremonies often took place during the day, the quieter hours of twilight and night might be reserved for more personal devotion and reflection. Priests and priestesses might perform rituals or tend to sacred flames, their movements slow and deliberate in the hushed atmosphere. The air might be filled with the faint scent of incense, and the silence broken only by the whisper of prayers, or the gentle flickering of sacred lamps. For those seeking healing or divine guidance, a visit to a sanctuary at night might have been a profound experience. The stillness and the sense of being in a sacred space could have fostered a deeper connection to the spiritual realm. They might have offered prayers or left votive offerings, their hopes and fears whispered into the darkness. In the world of theatre and entertainment, the evenings would sometimes come alive with performances. While many theatrical events took place during the day in open-air amphitheatres, smaller gatherings for music, poetry recitations, or more intimate performances might have occurred in the evening. Imagine the soft glow of torches illuminating the faces of the performers and the audience, the power of storytelling weaving its spell under the night sky. Evenings could also be a time for social gatherings and symposia, informal banquets or drinking parties, particularly among the more affluent citizens. These were not merely about food and drink. They were opportunities for intellectual discourse, philosophical debate, music, and entertainment. Imagine reclining on comfortable couches, surrounded by friends and fellow thinkers, the wine flowing freely, and conversations ranging from the weighty matters of politics and philosophy to lighter topics of poetry and art. The atmosphere at a symposium would have been convivial and stimulating, a space for intellectual sparring and the forging of social bonds. Music and poetry were often integral parts of these gatherings, adding to the festive yet thoughtful ambience. Imagine the sound of laughter, mingling with the strains of a flute or the recitation of witty verses. However, it's important to remember that the lives of ancient Greeks were diverse, and not everyone would have participated in such gatherings. For many, the evenings were a time for quiet family life and essential tasks. We've already touched upon the preparation of food and the telling of stories, but there were other everyday activities that might extend into the evening hours. Craftspeople might continue their work by lamplight. The rhythmic tapping of a hammer, or the whirring of a spindle breaking, the silence of the night. Farmers might tend to their animals or prepare tools for the next day's labor. These were the essential tasks that formed the backbone of their society, continuing even as darkness fell. As we drift further into the night, imagine the sounds of the ancient city gradually fading. The lively chatter of the day gives way to the quiet murmur of sleeping households. The flickering lights in windows begin to disappear one by one, like stars being extinguished as the night deepens. The pathways and streets, bustling with activity during the day, would become still and deserted. Perhaps a lone watchman would patrol, his footsteps echoing softly in the darkness, ensuring the peace and safety of the sleeping city. The natural world would take over the soundscape, the gentle rustling of leaves in the night breeze, the distant hoot of an owl, the chirping of nocturnal insects creating a subtle symphony of the night. These were the sounds that would lull the ancient Greeks to sleep, a reminder of the ever-present rhythm of nature. Even in sleep, their connection to their beliefs and culture might continue. Dreams, in the ancient world, were often seen as significant, perhaps messages from the gods or glimpses into the future. One might ponder their dreams upon waking, seeking meaning and guidance from the nocturnal visions. And so, the long night would unfold, a time of rest, reflection, and perhaps even unconscious connection to the deeper currents of their world. As the hours passed, the darkness would gradually begin to yield, and the first hints of dawn would appear on the eastern horizon, promising a new day filled with its own activities and experiences. But for now, all is still, all is quiet, under the watchful gaze of the ancient stars. Allow yourself to sink deeper into this peaceful scene, dear friend. Let the stillness of the ancient night envelop you. Feel the gentle rhythm of your own breath, mirroring the slow, steady passage of time. There is a profound comfort in knowing that for millennia, people have found solace and rest in the embrace of darkness. You are part of that timeless rhythm now. Release any lingering thoughts or tensions, and simply be. Let your mind drift like a gentle boat on a calm sea. Each breath carries you further into relaxation, further into the stillness of sleep. The ancient Greeks have shown us the beauty and tranquility of their evenings. Now, let that peace become your own. Sleep now, peacefully, as our journey through the ancient Greek evening continues. Let's step away from the populated centers for a moment and consider the quieter corners of their world. Imagine a small, remote farmstead nestled in a valley, far from the hustle of the city and the clamor of the port. Here, life moved at a different pace, dictated not by the marketplace, but by the slow, steady rhythm of the seasons and the land. On a quiet evening, the farmer and his family would be completing their last chores before nightfall. The animals would be fed and secured in their pens, the tools of the day's labor carefully set aside. The sounds would be gentle and familiar, the soft lowing of a cow, the rustle of straw, the distant tinkling of a goat's bell as it settled down for the night. The air might be filled with the earthy scent of turned soil and the fresh smell of the surrounding fields. As darkness fell completely, the family would gather for their simple evening meal. The food would be wholesome and nourishing, drawn directly from the land they cultivated, bread baked in a small oven, olives harvested from their own trees, cheese from their animals, and perhaps a stew made with wild herbs and legumes. The meal would be a time for quiet, appreciation of the day's hard work and the sustenance it provided. The evening would not be rushed. There would be time for quiet contemplation, for the simple act of being together as a family. The father might mend a broken tool or prepare for the next day's planting. The mother might spin wool into thread, her hands moving with practiced, rhythmic grace. The children, perhaps tired from playing in the fields all day, might listen to the soft hum of their mother's work or the deep, even breathing of the home. In this peaceful, rural setting, the stars would have felt much closer. Without the haze of city lights, the night sky would have been a brilliant, awe-inspiring spectacle. The constellations would stand out in sharp relief, and the path of the Milky Way would stretch across the heavens like a river of light. It's easy to imagine a farmer stepping outside, after a long day of labor, to simply gaze up at the infinite expanse, feeling a sense of wonder and connection to the vastness of the universe. Let's shift our focus now to the lives of women in ancient Greece, and how their evenings were spent. Their days were often filled with domestic duties, but the evening could offer a different kind of respite. After the children were asleep and the men were perhaps at a symposium or engaged in other pursuits, women might have time for their own conversations and companionship. Within the gyneconitis, or women's quarters, the evenings could be a time for shared tasks like weaving and spinning, accompanied by quiet gossip and the exchange of wisdom. The rhythm of the looms and the spindles would provide a soothing, continuous hum, a backdrop to their shared stories and laughter. It was a space of support and sisterhood, where they could discuss the matters of their lives without the presence of men. For the young women of a household, the evenings might be filled with music and dancing. These gatherings, often informal, would be a chance for them to practice the arts that were considered an essential part of a girl's education. The gentle strains of a lyre or the sweet melody of a flute might echo through the courtyard, a sound of youth and joy in the quiet of the night. Let's also consider the role of slaves in ancient Greek society, and how their evenings would have been spent. While their days were filled with labor, their evenings might offer a brief period of rest. They might gather in their own quarters, sharing meals and conversation, finding solace and community with one another. Their lives were often difficult, but in these quiet moments, they could share stories and maintain their own traditions, even far from their homelands. The institution of slavery was a pervasive part of ancient Greek life, and it's a part of our story we must acknowledge with a sense of quiet sadness. But even in such a system, human connection would find a way to flourish, a testament to the enduring need for companionship and shared experience. As we near the midpoint of our journey, let's turn our attention to the philosophical and spiritual aspects of the ancient Greek evening. For many, the night was not just a time for rest, but for thought. The stillness and darkness provided a perfect backdrop for pondering the big questions of existence. The night was a time for self-reflection and introspection. Away from the distractions of the day, a person might think about their life, their purpose, and their place in the cosmos. The vast, silent sky would have served as a powerful reminder of both their own smallness and the great, unfathomable mysteries of the universe. The practice of incubation was a spiritual ritual often performed at night. A person seeking a cure for an illness or a dream from the gods would sleep in a sacred sanctuary, hoping to be visited by a deity in a dream. The evening would be a time of preparation, of cleansing rituals and quiet prayers, all in anticipation of this sacred, nocturnal encounter. The quiet hours of the night were also when the great minds of ancient Greece might have done their most profound work. Imagine a poet like Sappho, composing her lyrical verses by the light of a lamp, or a historian like Thucydides, meticulously recording the events of his time. The silence and focus of the night would have allowed for the kind of deep concentration needed for such timeless creations. Let's take a moment now to simply breathe and let these images settle in our minds. The farmer under the stars, the women at their looms, the philosopher in quiet contemplation, each of them, in their own way, was connected to the same shared experience of the passing of the day and the arrival of the night. You can feel that connection too, if you listen. The quiet hum of the universe is still there, just beyond the edge of your consciousness. The same moon that cast its soft light on those ancient lands is shining somewhere in the world tonight. The air you breathe is part of the same great, flowing atmosphere that carried the gentle evening breezes of long ago. So, let your body relax even more deeply. Let your mind become as still and tranquil as a calm harbor at night. The worries of your day are like the distant sounds of the marketplace. They are fading now, growing softer, and then disappearing completely. There is nothing more to do now, nothing to think about, nothing to plan, just a profound and peaceful stillness. The long, winding day is over. The long, peaceful night has arrived. You are safe. You are at rest. Drift away now into the quiet, starlit dark.